Should Nvidia bring back the 1080 Ti? This GPU is a couple of years old, but it's still pretty awesome. Let's talk about some reasons why maybe they should. Hey guys, so today's video is sponsored by CDKDO's genuine CD keys, not only for software like Windows 10, and we also have a coupon code where you're going to be able to get this for under $20. What you first want to do is go and sign up for an account just to make sure all of your information is in there. You can go and search for, it's going to be the Windows 10 Pro. It's OEM, very easy process. You add it to your cart and you're going to see that you're going to have the option to put a coupon code. You're going to put in CC20 and then you just go through the regular checkout process. Basically, you just have to go in Windows. I'm going to show you how to do this now. You enter the CD key in there and you'll see it's going to work without any issue. And for the price that you're paying, I really think it's a fantastic deal to get a real, genuine, smooth working copies of Windows. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Remember to subscribe and smash that like button. So let's talk about the 1080 Ti. When this GPU came out, everybody was pretty stoked at how awesome that it performed, and it wasn't particularly expensive according to today's standards, but back then around $699 got you pretty much the top performing GPU. Now there was a Titan of that generation which was a little bit cheaper, over $1,000, closer to $1,200. That's pretty much the price of a 3080 Ti now, as well as the 2080 Ti of the previous generation. But the 1080 Ti came in at $699, which is probably going to be one of the last times that we see a GPU that great, that's the highest end, be priced that low. We saw what Nvidia did with the RTX 3080 at $699. People bought that immediately, stock went out, and we haven't been able to really get it ever since. So I doubt they're ever going to introduce a GPU that powerful at that price point again. But let's talk about the 1080 Ti in 2021. Is it still a good GPU? First, let's get an idea of exactly how performant the 1080 Ti is. Well, it's definitely not going to be a barn burner anymore. I mean, people used to use it for 4K and for the most advanced games when it came out, but now it's going to pretty much sneak in a little bit towards the lower end of the RTX 3000. We're talking about basically going up against an RTX 3060, and even then, the 3060 will certainly have a lot of advantages, but the idea here is the 1080 Ti for people playing in 1080p as well as 1440p. For most games, actually, it's more than enough. Now, if you actually do want to go out and play 4K and you want to really max it out, obviously you're going to need something from the newer generation and something considerably more expensive. But if you're still playing esports titles or even other games that are graphically intensive, but you're keeping them maybe to medium or even high settings at something like 1080p or 1440p, the 1080 Ti is actually a really reasonable alternative for Nvidia to reintroduce. But you're saying, why would Nvidia ever reintroduce such an old GPU when they're working hard to get new stock out in the hands of gamers, or at least we would hope so? Well, look at some of the GPUs they have actually reintroduced because of order shortages. Recently, they even reintroduced the 1050, the 1030. There have been GPUs popping up in different segments of the market, not to mention that there's a lot of talk of the 2060 actually being reintroduced into the market. So if they can introduce GPUs as crappy as like a 1030 and even something like a 2060, which is actually a fairly decent entry-level GPU, why can't they go back and actually introduce something like the 1080 Ti? While it wouldn't still be the top performing GPU in today's generation, if they can make enough of them, I'm sure a lot of entry-level gamers would be able to get their hands on one. Now, the interesting question would be, if it did come back, what would they actually price it at? That's going to be the trickiest part of this entire equation. Now, originally it was $699 MSRP. Obviously, they can't bring it back at any higher than that. It's going to be very, very funny. And I don't even think they can bring it back at that exact price, simply because it's been, generations now of GPUs. They have all their new stuff. So where do they price it? I mean, if you look at the secondhand used market, a lot of 1080 Ti's were selling for pretty much close to what they were when they came out, $400, $500. Some were even a little bit more during the really high GPU craze that we've had recently. So Maybe if they drop it down to like $299 or $399, if that would make sense somewhere in that range. And if they had a lot of availability, maybe that could take the place of some entry level 3050 or like a 3060. Ideally, it would be nice to see it at $299 or lower, considering the age of the GPU. And of course, Nvidia wouldn't really want to cut into sales of their 3060 lineup. Remember, even though right now it's really difficult to find something like a 3060, one little change in the market, if crypto crashes a lot harder than it is actually going down now, you're going to see a lot more of these GPUs actually be available. And that's going to create a problem for Nvidia because they want to sell these new GPUs. And if they have older 1080 Ti's that they've reintroduced into the market, really taking up sort of that price point between $250 and $350, they're not going to sell any of their new stuff because people are going to want to go and jump towards the 1080 Ti. Even though it's an old GPU, 1080 Ti still has a lot of strength, power, and a lot of sort of brand recognition, if you will, amongst gamers. Everybody would love to get a 1080 Ti. Imagine one at $250 and you can actually pick it up and buy it. Now, even if Nvidia did some type of LHR or light hash rate to this 1080 Ti to really keep it away from the hands of miners, that would be another very interesting move. And I think at least sort of that bottom market would be filled considerably more than it is today. Right now, the high-end gamers have been more or less taken care of with the 3090s, 3080 Ti. You can find a 3080 Ti reasonably easy enough if you really look at a price that's not too much different than MSRP, but it still is overpriced in many situations. So those high-end gamers have been okay. The mid-range has been really tough with the 3060, 3070 being perpetually sold out. A lot of those gamers that don't want to spend over $1,000 on a GPU certainly have had a lot of trouble. And while the 1080 Ti probably it's not going to help them nearly as much because they really want performance closer to a 2080 Ti like a 3070 would give them, at least a 1080 Ti would help to strengthen sort of the entry-level part of the market where the 3050 would be, and probably even a lot of the entry-level 3060s. So would this work, and would Nvidia do this? Well, possibly. Like I said, they reintroduced the 2060, and it's going to depend over the next few months and into next year. If the GPU shortages really continue, like Nvidia has said, and everything's going to be tough to get, I think it actually might make some sense to, instead of reintroducing the GPU like a 1030 that nobody really wants, it's just basically to plug in a monitor, why not reintroduce a 1080 Ti where it's going to actually excite a lot of sort of the budget and entry-level gamers if they can price it at a reasonable price, compared to today's GPU pricing. Like I said, maybe between $250 to $350. Not sure how realistic that would be, but certainly would be a great idea to get the GPU market sort of on its feet again. Because remember, the longer that it takes for the GPUs to stabilize and people to be able to get them, that's going to affect PC gaming and everything going forward. If people aren't playing any PC games, developers are going to turn to other platforms that are perhaps more profitable, including consoles, including even mobile gaming on iPhone and things like that. A lot of these companies, Apple included, have been pushing games a considerable amount. And if people have such a hard time, especially casual gamers, in building a computer, they're going to say, oh, let me just turn on my iPhone or my iPad or my Android device, and I could casually play games without having to buy an expensive GPU. And the same will hold true for consoles. They have everything in one and not have to worry about upgrades and hardware and things of that nature. So that's something that Nvidia is going to have to keep an eye on, because if we lose too many sort of enthusiasts from the PC gaming community, it can affect the quality of games, the output, the production, and eventually it may just be a very small niche market, which really we don't want for PC gaming after it's had such explosive growth during the last few years. So remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.